The Book of Enoch is one of the most mysterious works of antiquity, shrouded in an enigma that spans centuries. This apocryphal text, written in periods before the birth of Jesus, is regarded by some as a significant piece of religious history, while others see it as a fascinating mythology. It explores themes like the fall of angels, the emergence of the Nephilim, and catastrophic events, shaping a mystical narrative about the creation and corruption of humanity. These accounts paint a picture that both complements and contradicts official scriptures. For this reason, the book was excluded from the Bible by various religious traditions. However, it remains a work of historical and spiritual value for those seeking to understand the complexity of ancient beliefs. Many question whether the Book of Enoch genuinely reflects divine truth, or if it is merely a collection of myths. The text diverges from the traditional biblical narrative in several aspects, presenting a spiritual world where angels mingle with humans and reveal forbidden knowledge. For some scholars, this work represents an attempt to explain the mysteries of the universe and the human soul that canonical texts do not address deeply. Some even see in the book an anticipation of apocalyptic and messianic themes that are later explored in the New Testament. The book's allure lies in its ability to stimulate imagination and challenge accepted truths, fueling an ever-growing interest that transcends time and religious beliefs. Although the Book of Enoch is not part of the Old Testament, its influence on Jewish and Christian tradition is undeniable. For centuries, it was read and respected by various religious groups, especially among early Christian communities. Many believed the book contained spiritual truths and visions that complemented the divine message. However, the decision to exclude it from the Bible was based on concerns about its authenticity and the contradictions it presented. Nevertheless, in some places, it continued to be revered. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church, for example, includes it in its sacred canon to this day, preserving this unique and distinct tradition. The Book of Enoch also addresses issues of morality and judgment, recounting the story of the fallen angels who introduced corrupt practices and dangerous teachings. This moralizing aspect gives the book an interesting position, for while it condemns sin, it also explores temptation and human vulnerability. The narrative illustrates how the interference of these angels and their descendants, the Nephilim, brought disorder to divine creation. Enoch, as a prophet, was responsible for warning of the judgment and consequences of the wicked. Although apocryphal, this message carries a tone of caution that resonates in the minds of readers and listeners to this day. Another relevant aspect of the Book of Enoch is its unique cosmology, presenting a vision of heaven and creation that diverges from traditional biblical descriptions. In the text, the universe is described with fascinating details about the movements of celestial bodies, spiritual realms, and planes of existence. This cosmological perspective has intrigued and continues to intrigue scholars, as it aligns with mystical views that arose in other cultures and religions. Some regard these descriptions as inspired visions, while others believe they represent the creative imagination of their authors. Either way, this portrayal of the universe adds a layer of depth and complexity to the Book of Enoch. For those interested in mysteries and spirituality, the Book of Enoch is a work worth exploring. It transports us to a universe filled with symbolism and teachings that, although rejected by the Christian canon, resonate in various traditions. More than a religious text, it reflects the anxieties and questions that permeate humanity's search for the divine. Thus, the Book of Enoch endures as an important piece of religious and esoteric literature, challenging our limits and expanding our understanding of spirituality. In each page, it offers an invitation to explore secrets that, according to tradition, were forbidden for common human understanding. The Bible describes Enoch as a man of profound faith and righteousness, a rare figure among the lineage of biblical patriarchs. According to the book of Genesis, he was the father of Methuselah and the great-grandfather of Noah, living in a time when humanity was still close to its divine origin. Enoch is primarily remembered for walking with God, an expression reflecting his life of devotion and intimacy with the Creator. The story says that at the age of 365, Enoch was taken by God without experiencing death, being one of only 2 people in the Bible to be directly taken up. This mysterious transition reinforces his image as a righteous man graced by the divine, inspiring the imagination of believers to this day. Enoch's life is portrayed as an example of faith and obedience, traits that made him one of the most honored patriarchs. Unlike many other biblical figures, he does not appear in epic battles or major historical events. His legacy lies in his relationship with God. The Judeo-Christian tradition depicts him as someone who led a tranquil and spiritual life, cultivating a singular closeness to the Creator. This deep connection makes Enoch a model of holiness and fidelity, inspiring generations of faithful to seek a similar relationship with God. The lack of details about his ordinary life only heightens the mystery that surrounds him. Besides his presence in the book of Genesis, Enoch is also mentioned in other biblical passages, such as in the epistles of Hebrews and Jude. These references suggest that he was viewed as a prophet, a man who received special revelations about humanity's future. The Epistle of Jude, for example, mentions a prophecy attributed to Enoch about the divine judgment of the wicked, a vision echoing the apocalyptic themes of the apocryphal book that bears his name. Enoch's mention in the New Testament demonstrates the relevance of his figure to early Christians, who saw him as a precursor of judgment and the promise of redemption. Enoch is a figure of reverence not only in Christianity but also in other spiritual traditions. In the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, he is considered a saint, and the book bearing his name is included in the sacred canon. This inclusion reflects the respect and admiration that Enoch's figure evokes, especially for his role as a prophet of judgment and justice. For Ethiopians, Enoch represents the continuity of God's message across generations, a man who lived in a time of purity and divine intimacy. This view contrasts with the Western tradition, where his book is seen as apocryphal, but reverence for the figure of Enoch remains in both contexts. Enoch's importance is also reflected in apocryphal and esoteric literature, where he is described as the scribe of judgment and witness of righteousness. In these traditions, he is remembered not only for his faith but also for his wisdom and for having received visions about humanity's ultimate fate. The image of Enoch as a visionary prophet has been solidified over centuries, inspiring apocalyptic texts and mystical literature. This vision of Enoch as a herald of divine judgment foreshadows themes that later appear in figures like the prophet Daniel and even Jesus, reinforcing the link between divine justice and spiritual purity. Enoch's life reminds us that amidst the complexities of faith, the essence lies in a sincere relationship with God. He lived in a time preceding the flood, a world marked by corruption and sin, yet he was spared from this destruction due to his righteousness. This story of faith and salvation remains alive in religious and spiritual tradition, inspiring the pursuit of a life of integrity and closeness to the Creator. Enoch's journey teaches us that ultimately, the relationship with God transcends mortality and leads to eternal communion, an ideal that continues to resonate among the faithful. In the book of Enoch, we find the narrative of the Nephilim, a mysterious race that emerged from the union between angels and humans. These giants are described as powerful and corrupt, bringing forbidden knowledge and dangerous practices to humanity. The story of the Nephilim is central to the book of Enoch, as it portrays a period when angels, known as watchers, abandoned their heavenly duties and rebelled against God. They taught humans practices like the use of metals and astrology, introducing skills that drastically changed society at the time. This narrative adds a layer of mystery and tension to the book, addressing humanity's fragility in the face of the supernatural. According to the book of Enoch, the fall of the angels represents one of the first episodes of corruption in the world created by God. These angels, upon falling in love with human women, broke divine laws and opened a door to evil. The creation of the Nephilim is seen as a direct consequence of this transgression, leading humanity to a state of moral decay and corruption. This moment marks the beginning of a spiritual war in which the fallen watchers challenge the principles established by God. The presence of the Nephilim, giant and powerful beings, makes the situation even more dangerous and incites chaos that would ultimately lead to the flood. The Nephilim not only represented a physical threat but also a spiritual one, as they introduced knowledge that humanity was not prepared to wield. The use of metals for weapons, the practice of magical rituals, and the study of the stars are some of the forbidden teachings that the fallen angels imparted to humans. These teachings were seductive but also harmful, as they distanced people from the original purity that God desired. This situation of spiritual and moral degradation was so severe that, according to the book of Enoch, the flood was God's only solution to cleanse the world. The destruction caused by the Nephilim and their progenitors, the fallen angels, was more than just physical decay. It was the corruption of the human soul. These beings introduced a way of living at odds with divine values, drawing humanity toward a path of violence and selfishness. According to the book of Enoch, the Watchers were fully aware of the consequences of their actions, but were willing to sacrifice the world's harmony for their own satisfaction. This upset the balance of creation, as the union between humans and celestial beings defied the original order established by God. The Nephilim, with their immense size and strength, began to dominate and terrorize the world, prompting God to take drastic action. For Enoch, prophet and messenger, The Nephilim represented the ultimate corruption of the purity that God desired for the world. As a close observer of these events, Enoch witnessed society's deterioration and the growing distance between humankind and its creator. The fall of the angels and the rise of the Nephilim symbolize a time of great trial, where sin and forbidden knowledge took root in humanity. This situation became increasingly unsustainable, demanding a divine intervention to restore peace. Enoch's role as God's spokesman in this context underscores his mission to warn of the impending judgment that was drawing near. The episode of the Nephilim illustrates an ongoing struggle between light and darkness, order and chaos. The fall of the angels represents a rejection of divine obedience and an attempt to usurp God's plan for creation. It is a story that reminds us of human fragility when confronted with power and knowledge beyond their understanding. God's intervention through the flood is seen as a necessary response to restore balance, purifying the earth of the sins brought by the Watchers and the Nephilim. This narrative offers a lesson on the limits of power and the danger of seeking what is forbidden. The Book of Enoch thus serves as a warning about the importance of humility and trust in divine intentions. For some theologians and scholars, the story of the Nephilim and the fallen angels also reflects the dangers of arrogance and the thirst for power. This quest by spiritual beings to equal God resulted not only in their downfall but also in the degradation of creation. The fall of the angels is a symbol of how the pursuit of power can corrupt even the most exalted beings, and the Nephilim represent the direct impact of this corruption on earthly life. The destruction of the Nephilim and the flood is a reminder of the inevitable consequences for those who disobey divine laws. This story is a dark portrayal of what happens when the sacred is profaned. The story of the Nephilim remains one of the most provocative mysteries of the Book of Enoch, a point of divergence from the traditional Bible. While the canonical scriptures briefly mention the Nephilim, the Book of Enoch provides a more detailed explanation, describing them as a race of giants with a sinister purpose. This apocryphal account raises complex theological questions about the nature of angels and their capabilities. Some scholars consider these descriptions to be symbolic, while others see them as a real, forgotten story of humanity. In both cases, the impact of the Nephilim on the biblical narrative and spirituality remains a topic of intense debate. The Book of Enoch was considered lost for centuries until, in 1773, Western explorers discovered an intact copy in Ethiopia. The work had been preserved by the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which still considers it part of its scriptures. This rediscovery brought renewed interest in the book's content and its spiritual significance. The existence of a Christian community that kept the Enochian tradition alive showed the diversity of Christian beliefs worldwide. In Ethiopia, the book was not merely a historical work but also a sacred text with religious value. This revealed a world of belief that many Western Christians were previously unaware of. The preservation of the Book of Enoch in Ethiopia aroused the interest of theologians and historians, who began to investigate its relevance and authenticity. This encounter between Western and Eastern traditions highlighted how each region developed different perspectives on what is considered sacred. For Ethiopians, the Book of Enoch was never seen as apocryphal. It was always a source of divine revelations, read and revered in their churches. The acceptance of the book as part of the Ethiopian canon challenged the prevailing understanding of accepted biblical texts. This fact raised questions about the formation of the canon and the possibility of other sacred texts outside the Western Christian tradition. The rediscovery of the Book of Enoch also inspired debates about the authenticity and antiquity of its accounts. Linguistic and archaeological studies sought to confirm whether the original text of Enoch could have truly survived so long in the Ethiopian tradition. This search brought to light fragments and versions that help reconstruct the book's history. The discovery of the Ethiopian text demonstrated that the work had an unexpected longevity and that its ideas had been carefully preserved. This indicated that, even outside Western circles, the book held a spiritual value that justified its preservation. The Ethiopian Church, therefore, continues to play a crucial role in preserving this work. The rediscovery of the Book of Enoch made a significant impact on the academic and religious world, offering a new perspective on the spiritual heritage of early Christianity. This event demonstrated that Ethiopian Christianity maintained unique and independent traditions that enriched the diversity of global Christian faith. For many scholars, the Book of Enoch became a key to better understanding the beliefs and practices of early Christians and Jews. The work expanded the understanding of how spirituality was shaped by different visions over time. By preserving this text, the Ethiopian Church has kept alive an essential part of ancient spirituality, connecting the present to the distant past. With the Book of Enoch translated into English and other modern languages, Its content became accessible to the general public, further increasing its reach. People of various religious and academic backgrounds began reading the book and exploring its mysteries. This translation democratized access to the content, allowing curious minds and believers to directly engage with Enoch's visions. This facilitated debate on the book's importance, which continues to be a source of inspiration and questioning. As it entered popular culture, the Book of Enoch gained new meanings and created space for discussions on faith and history. The acceptance of the Book of Enoch in Ethiopia and its rediscovery in the West demonstrate the diverse roots of Christianity. Christian faith is not monolithic. It is shaped by numerous traditions and interpretations. The preservation of Enoch in Ethiopia symbolizes respect for different spiritual visions and the importance of religious diversity. Enoch's message about judgment and righteous living resonates across cultures, revealing a spiritual value that transcends cultural and geographical barriers. Thus, the Book of Enoch teaches us that there are many ways to seek truth and that each can contribute to our understanding of the divine. The discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls between 1946 and 1947 brought to light fragments of the Book of Enoch, revealing a new understanding of ancient religious texts. These manuscripts, found in caves in the Qumran region of the West Bank, contained ancient religious documents dating back about 2,000 years. Among the texts were parts of the Book of Enoch, which had been preserved and carefully guarded over centuries. The rediscovery of Enoch in these manuscripts reinforced its importance to ancient Jews and early Christians. Its presence at Qumran highlighted the respect and influence this book held in ancient traditions. The discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls was a historic milestone, as it offered new pieces to the puzzle of ancient Jewish and Christian traditions. These manuscripts confirmed that the Book of Enoch was not only known but also widely read and studied by ancient religious communities. This challenged the view that the book was merely a secondary or mythological text. Instead, it showed that it played a significant role in the apocalyptic thinking and theology of some Jewish communities. For scholars, this indicated that the Book of Enoch might contain essential themes and teachings that shaped part of the first-century spirituality. The Dead Sea Scrolls also revealed details about the spiritual and social life of the Essenes, a Jewish community living in Qumran that held a messianic and apocalyptic vision. These manuscripts demonstrated that the Essenes believed in an imminent divine judgment and the coming of a Messiah, themes strongly present in the Book of Enoch. By studying these texts, scholars began to see Enoch as a work that influenced the theology of the Essenes and other Jewish sects of the time. Thus, the book was interpreted as a source of inspiration for those seeking answers about the nature of evil and humanity's destiny. The presence of the Book of Enoch among the Dead Sea Scrolls sparked discussions about its authenticity and antiquity. Most of the manuscripts found were between 2,000 and 2,300 years old, reinforcing the idea that Enoch might have been written before Jesus' birth. The discovery of Enoch's oldest fragments helped scholars better understand its chronology and context. By examining these fragments, it was possible to identify elements suggesting a date close to Old Testament times. This led to the book being seen as a historically significant work, whose accounts may reflect the beliefs of communities awaiting final judgment. The Dead Sea Scrolls brought a diversity of theological themes to light, enriching interpretations of ancient scriptures. The Book of Enoch, in particular, offered an apocalyptic and mystical outlook that complemented canonical books, introducing ideas like the judgment of fallen angels and the separation of the righteous and the wicked. These themes echoed the beliefs and expectations of religious communities seeking answers to divine mysteries. Thus, the rediscovery of Enoch provided a broad and diverse view of early Jewish and Christian spirituality, even influencing canonical texts that appeared later. For many scholars, the book was a precursor to the apocalyptic prophecies found in the Bible. Today, the Dead Sea Scrolls, including fragments of the Book of Enoch, are considered one of the greatest archaeological finds in religious history. They revealed that apocalyptic thought and end-times visions were already present and mature before Jesus' arrival. The importance of the Book of Enoch and other texts found in Qumran lies in their ability to expand our understanding of the spirituality and beliefs that preceded the New Testament. Each fragment found offers a piece of the puzzle about worldviews, prophecies, and mysticism from that time. Thus, the Dead Sea Scrolls keep alive the connection between humanity's spiritual past and present. The Book of Enoch is divided into 5 main parts, each with specific themes and purposes addressing everything from the creation of the world to final judgment. The first section, the Book of the Watchers, recounts the fall of the angels and the origin of the Nephilim, offering a mythical explanation for humanity's corruption. This book details the behavior of the fallen angels and the forbidden abilities they passed on to humans. It is a story full of mysteries and symbolism, where the angels, known as Watchers, rebel against God and introduce sin into the earth. This first section establishes the foundation for the themes of corruption and judgment that permeate the entire book. The second part is the Book of Parables, which presents a series of visions and prophecies about the Son of Man and the judgment of the wicked. In this section, Enoch recounts apocalyptic visions that include figures such as the Ancient of Days and the Messiah, reinforcing the messianic expectation of final judgment. The Son of Man is seen as a figure of redemption, someone who would come to restore justice and bring salvation to the righteous. This section closely resembles the prophetic style of the New Testament, especially Revelation, suggesting a possible influence on early Christianity. The prophecies and teachings of this part make it one of the most revered in a religious context. The third part is the Astronomical Book, which offers a detailed view of the cosmos from Enoch's perspective. This book describes the workings of the stars, time cycles, and celestial phenomena, providing a glimpse into the mystical cosmology of the era. Enoch explains the movement of stars, moon phases, and even seasons, all in accordance with divine laws. This cosmic description has a symbolic character, showing that the universe follows an order established by God. Many scholars interpret this section as an attempt to link cosmic observation with spirituality, reinforcing the idea that God governs the universe in all its details. In the fourth part, we have the Dream Visions, where Enoch recounts a series of prophetic visions about humanity's future. These visions cover events from creation to the end times, foreseeing historical and spiritual events that would shape the world's destiny. This section has a prophetic and apocalyptic tone, describing the struggles between good and evil, the rise of kingdoms, and the coming of final judgment. This section is comparable to the Book of Daniel in the Old Testament and Revelation in the New Testament. Its prophecies reveal a complex structure of eras and events, encouraging the faithful to live righteously in anticipation of God's judgment. The fifth and final part is known as the Epistles of Enoch, a collection of teachings and reflections that Enoch shares about justice and the importance of faith. In this section, he imparts advice and wisdom to the righteous, emphasizing the need to live according to the divine will. The Epistles of Enoch reinforce the idea that life should be lived in harmony with God's laws and that the righteous will be rewarded at the end of time. This last section offers a vision of hope, contrasting with the grim descriptions of judgment in the previous sections. Enoch reminds readers that faith and obedience are the keys to achieving eternal blessedness. Each of these 5 parts plays an essential role in building the narrative of the Book of Enoch, which spans from the fall of angels to the redemption of the righteous. Together, they create a complex and profound work that uniquely explores spiritual and apocalyptic themes. The Book of Enoch stands out for addressing aspects uncommon in canonical scriptures, bringing cosmic, moral, and theological visions that challenge and inspire. The division into 5 distinct sections allows each theme to be explored in depth, making the Book of Enoch one of the most intriguing texts in religious literature. It is a work that, despite being outside the official canon, continues to influence and fascinate generations. The Book of the Watchers is one of the most enigmatic and provocative parts of the Book of Enoch, recounting the fall of a group of angels who disobeyed God. These angels, known as Watchers, were sent to observe the earth but fell in love with human women, violating their divine purpose. In their rebellion, they descended to earth and took wives, giving rise to the Nephilim, a race of giants. This act of disobedience marks a moment of deep corruption, for, beyond generating the Nephilim, the angels taught humans knowledge that should not have been revealed. The practices taught by the Watchers included the use of metals for making weapons and adornments, knowledge of enchantments, and astrology. The rebellion of the Watchers is seen as a symbol of the danger of forbidden knowledge and corrupted power. These angels introduced practices that led humanity astray from God's paths, encouraging a life of sin and violence. This theme recurs in the Book of the Watchers, describing how these teachings distorted creation's purity and innocence. The impact of this angelic fall was so devastating that God decided to intervene, decreeing a severe judgment upon the Watchers and their descendants, the Nephilim. The book presents this intervention as a measure to restore divine order and rid the earth of the evil influences that were corrupting humanity. Among the leaders of the fallen angels is Azazel, one of the most mentioned characters in the Book of the Watchers, and considered responsible for teaching humans dangerous secrets. Azazel is described as an angel who brought knowledge about weapons and cosmetics, teaching practices that promoted war and vanity. In the account, He is singled out as the primary instigator of the corruption that spread among people. His responsibility for the world's sins is so great that God himself decrees that all sins be attributed to him. Azazel's fate is presented as an example of divine judgment, an eternal punishment for those who defy the sacred order. The judgment of the Watchers and the Nephilim is described as a direct manifestation of divine justice. God sends archangels such as Michael and Raphael to imprison the fallen angels and purify the earth of their influence. They are cast into dark abysses, where they will remain until the final judgment. This fate of the Watchers represents a warning about the consequences of defying God's laws. The Book of the Watchers emphasizes that even celestial beings are subject to divine judgment, reinforcing the message that no one is above divine laws. The condemnation of the fallen angels and their descendants underscores the importance of righteousness and obedience to the divine will. The story of the Watchers raises deep theological questions about the nature of sin and free will. Although these angels were celestial beings, they consciously chose to disobey God, suggesting that even angels have the freedom of choice. This idea challenges some traditional conceptions about the nature of celestial beings and their roles. The choice of the Watchers to fall is thus not just a story of disobedience, but also a reflection of the complexities of freedom and responsibility. The Book of the Watchers explores these issues, providing a unique perspective on the power and limitations of spiritual beings. In conclusion, the Book of the Watchers is a powerful narrative about the struggle between good and evil and the consequences of crossing divine boundaries. The Watchers became symbolic figures of what happens when knowledge and power are used selfishly and disobediently. Their fall and the emergence of the Nephilim demonstrate the devastating impact of corruption on creation. The story of these fallen angels serves as a reminder that power and knowledge come with great responsibility and that without divine guidance, they can lead to ruin. This message remains relevant and resonates as a warning about the importance of honoring God's laws and living with integrity. The second part of the Book of Enoch, known as the Parables of Similitude, is devoted to visions and prophecies about the judgment of the wicked and the role of the Son of Man at the end of times. This section explores the messianic expectation common among Jewish communities before the Christian era, presenting the Son of Man as a figure of justice and redemption. This prophetic vision has a tone similar to that of the New Testament, particularly in Revelation's apocalyptic descriptions. In the Book of Enoch, the Son of Man is a celestial being who will judge both humans and fallen angels, restoring peace and justice to the righteous. The Parables of Similitude also introduce the figure of the Ancient of Days, a character who represents God's eternity and authority. In this vision, the Ancient of Days is described as a venerable figure surrounded by light, who delegates power to the Son of Man. This description echoes the Book of Daniel in the Old Testament, where the Ancient of Days appears in a prophetic vision of judgment. The Son of Man, in turn, is portrayed as a savior who will come in glory to rescue the righteous and condemn the wicked. This messianic expectation and promise of final justice reflect a spiritual yearning that became central in Jewish apocalyptic thought. The parable section is notable for its poetic and visionary tone as it addresses the end of times and judgment. The text suggests that God is not only aware of the world's injustices but will, at a specific moment, intervene to end the suffering of the righteous. This divine intervention is described as an act of love and justice, where each action will be judged, and the righteous will receive their rewards. This hope for a final judgment and cosmic restoration is one of the most powerful themes of this section, conveying a message of hope and confidence in God's goodness. The Parables of Similitude also reflect the historical context in which they were written, where the Jewish people lived under the dominion of foreign empires and yearned for liberation. Enoch's prophecies about a final judgment and the establishment of a kingdom of justice represent a spiritual response to these times of oppression. The figure of the Son of Man as judge and redeemer echoed the hope for a leader who would deliver people from injustice and suffering. Thus, the book became a source of inspiration for those who longed for God's intervention against the forces of evil. Enoch's prophecies about the Son of Man and the final judgment continued to resonate among early Christians. These ideas influenced the worldview of Jesus' first followers, who saw him as the fulfillment of Enoch's apocalyptic prophecies. Many scholars believe that the concept of the Son of Man in the New Testament was influenced by this Enochian tradition. The hope for future justice and a new era of peace and holiness inspired generations to pursue righteousness and faith in God, awaiting the promised salvation. The Parables of Similitude conclude with a message of warning and hope, reminding the faithful that judgment is certain and justice will prevail. For ancient and modern readers, This promise of a just end is both a comfort and an incentive to live in obedience to God. The image of the Son of Man as Redeemer and final Judge remains one of the strongest symbols of divine justice. This section of the Book of Enoch reinforces the idea that good will triumph over evil and that God, in His infinite wisdom, is always attentive to the deeds of men and celestial beings. The astronomical book, in the Book of Enoch, presents a vision of the cosmos that blends spirituality with mystical observation of celestial phenomena. Enoch describes the universe with fascinating details about stars, planetary movement, lunar phases, and the interaction between natural elements. For the ancients, these descriptions offered a poetic and symbolic view of the world, where each star and planet followed a divine order. Enoch's cosmology reveals a perspective in which the universe is in harmony with God's established laws, showing that the Creator is the true ruler of the cosmos. This vision makes the Book of Enoch both a scientific and spiritual text, uniting the divine with the natural. Enoch's astronomical knowledge is presented as a revelation granted to him by angels, who guide him through the heavens and explain the universe's secrets. These angels reveal how each star and planet has a specific purpose and a predetermined path to follow. For Enoch, this celestial order reflects God's perfection and control over creation, where nothing happens by chance. The astronomical book shows that observing the heavens is not only a scientific study but also a form of worship and recognition of divine grandeur. This vision makes the universe function like a grand orchestra, where all celestial bodies have their role in the symphony of creation. Enoch's cosmic vision also brings spiritual aspects to natural phenomena, such as seasons, lunar cycles, and star movement. These events are described as representations of divine order, where each change in the sky reflects a celestial purpose. This mystical perception places nature in a sacred role, where each detail has a spiritual meaning. The astronomical book of Enoch suggests that in observing the heavens, we are witnessing God's direct handiwork. This cosmology not only describes the physical universe, but also conveys a message about the importance of harmony and obedience to the order established by God. Another interesting aspect of the astronomical book is Enoch's view of time and its connection to the cosmos. For him, time is divided and ordered according to natural cycles, such as seasons and the movement of celestial bodies. This view is an attempt to establish a link between time and the divine, suggesting that the calendar and the counting of days have a spiritual purpose. The counting of time and years, according to Enoch, reflects God's eternity and His constant presence in creation. For the ancients, this view served as a reminder that time is sacred and should be respected as an expression of divine will. The astronomical book has been interpreted in various ways over the centuries, from an attempt to map the universe to a poetic reflection on divine order. Some scholars consider this section of Enoch a reflection of the astronomical and astrological knowledge of the time, blended with profound spiritual symbolism. The descriptions of stars and natural cycles are interpreted as metaphors for God's perfection and greatness. For modern readers, the astronomical book offers a perspective on how the ancients viewed the universe, where science and spirituality coexisted harmoniously. Finally, the astronomical book of Enoch invites us to view the world around us as a reflection of divine creation. Its descriptions remind us that the universe is not only a physical structure but a work with a spiritual purpose. Enoch's cosmology teaches that everything is interconnected and that every element of creation has its place and function. This vision not only enriches our understanding of the cosmos, but also encourages us to respect nature and observe the heavens with reverence. For Enoch, looking at the stars is looking at God's handiwork, a message that continues to inspire readers across ages. In the dream visions, Enoch recounts a series of prophetic visions spanning humanity's history from creation to the end of times. This section is known for its apocalyptic and detailed descriptions, painting a picture of the ongoing struggle between good and evil. In Enoch's visions, he observes future events, including wars, destruction, and the final judgment of all beings. These visions are presented as divine messages, given to Enoch to warn humanity about the times to come. This book reinforces the image of Enoch as a prophet of judgment, someone who foresaw Earth's fate and the ultimate victory of the righteous. The dream visions include specific predictions about the rise and fall of kingdoms, spiritual battles, and the judgment of the wicked. These visions present a narrative that resembles the prophetic structure of books like Daniel and Revelation, offering a detailed portrait of a future where evil will be eradicated. The apocalyptic descriptions cover the emergence of leaders and humanity's corruption, portraying a world headed toward judgment. For early readers, these visions were a source of hope, as they indicated that God was aware of suffering and injustice. The promise of divine intervention was a message of comfort for those awaiting the restoration of peace. A notable aspect of the dream visions is the prophecy of the flood, which appears as a divine purification of the corruption brought by the Watchers and Nephilim. According to Enoch, the flood was a necessary response to restore purity and order in the world. This vision connects Enoch directly to Noah's story, reinforcing Enoch's role as a prophet of imminent judgment. The flood's description serves as a warning to humanity, reminding that God intervenes in history when sin reaches extreme proportions. This connection between past and future shows that for Enoch, divine judgment is inevitable but always just. The dream visions also present a prophetic structure known as the prophecy of weeks, where human history is divided into periods or weeks, each representing an era of transformation. Each week brings important events, starting with creation and culminating in the final judgment and the arrival of a new time of peace. This structure allows Enoch to envision history as an ordered process, where the ultimate fate is the redemption of the righteous and the punishment of the wicked. The prophecy of weeks resembles the chronology in the book of Daniel and has been interpreted as a vision of humanity's progress towards salvation. Enoch's apocalyptic prophecies served as inspiration for later religious texts, especially Revelation in the New Testament. Many themes and images from the dream visions appear in John's Revelation, suggesting that Enochian ideas influenced early Christians. The descriptions of kingdoms, the battle between light and darkness, and the promise of a new era of peace are themes that resonate in early Christian theology. Enoch's prophecies thus represent an important contribution to understanding the last days and the hope for God's victory over evil. Finally, the dream visions emphasize the need to live righteously in preparation for judgment. Enoch's message is that humanity must seek justice and faith, as the end times will bring an accounting where all will be judged. The visions are a call to holiness and obedience, for Enoch shows that God rewards the righteous and condemns the wicked. This apocalyptic and moralizing vision reminds readers that time is short and every action matters. The Dream Visions section is thus a powerful call to reflect on life and each individual's spiritual purpose. The Book of Enoch presents various contradictions with the Bible, which contributed to its exclusion from the sacred canon. One of the most notable contradictions lies in Noah's presence at a time when Enoch had already been taken to heaven. In chapter 10 of Enoch, for example, he mentions events related to the flood, which contradicts the biblical account, indicating that Enoch lived before Noah. This chronological discrepancy raised doubts about the book's authenticity and its validity as divine revelation. For many theologians, these inconsistencies suggest that the book was written by someone else, in a later period, using Enoch's name as a pseudonym. Another significant contradiction in the Book of Enoch involves the role of the demon Azazel, who is described as responsible for all corruption in the world. However, in the Bible, Satan is identified as God's main adversary and the originator of sin. The Book of Enoch, by placing Azazel as the cause of evil, raises a theological question about the origin and role of demons. For the Christian tradition, this figure of Azazel represents an alternative view of the spiritual fall, which added a controversial element to the work. The Bible emphasizes Satan as the instigator of sin, and this difference made Enoch a theologically incompatible work. The Book of Enoch also describes fallen angels differently from the Bible, suggesting that these beings tried to repent of their sins. This aspect is foreign to biblical teaching, which indicates that fallen angels are destined for eternal punishment with no chance of redemption. This description in the Book of Enoch raises debates about the nature of angels and their capacity for choice and repentance. The Christian tradition holds that rebellious angels are already judged and cannot be redeemed, making the Enochian view a complicated subject. This alternative approach was considered controversial, contributing to Enoch's exclusion from the biblical canon. There is also a striking difference in descriptions of heaven and paradise between the Book of Enoch and the Bible. In Enoch, heaven is described as having a crystalline floor, while in the biblical Revelation, it is described as having streets of pure gold. These variations in descriptions suggest different views of God's heavenly abode and the universe's structure. This disparity reinforces the idea that the Book of Enoch has a distinct cosmology, possibly influenced by beliefs and cultures outside traditional Judaism. This cosmological difference is seen as a reason for Enoch not being included in the sacred scriptures, as it diverges from the Orthodox view. Another point of divergence lies in the astronomical and meteorological descriptions in the Book of Enoch, which include statements that appear to contradict both modern science and the biblical view. In the book, Enoch mentions that wind and snow come from wooden containers in heaven, an image many consider symbolic but also seen as fanciful. For modern scholars, these descriptions reflect ancient conceptions of the natural world that do not align with current scientific and theological understanding. This primitive and mythological view contributed to the rejection of the book by the theologians who organized the canon. These and other contradictions led to the Book of Enoch being classified as an apocryphal and pseudepigraphal work, meaning of questionable authorship. Many believe it was written by Enoch's followers to preserve and expand his message, but that it was not authored by Enoch himself. The inclusion of Enoch in the Ethiopian canon is an exception, while Western Jewish and Christian traditions regard the book as a historical and spiritual reference but not as divine revelation. For Christians, the Book of Enoch remains a mystery, a fascinating yet controversial work that enriches the understanding of ancient religious traditions. The exclusion of the Book of Enoch from the Bible was a decision based on a combination of theological, historical, and doctrinal factors. One of the main reasons for its non-inclusion in the biblical canon was the text's apocryphal nature, that is, its questionable authorship and theological contradictions with traditional scriptures. Many scholars believe that the Book of Enoch was written by Enoch's followers in a later period, explaining the discrepancies in its narratives. The fact that it mentions future events, such as the flood, suggests that the author could not have been Enoch himself. This context led religious authorities to consider the work pseudepigraphal, meaning attributed to Enoch but written by someone else. Another significant reason for the exclusion of the Book of Enoch was the controversial view it presents of fallen angels and the Nephilim. The detailed narrative of disobedient angels engaging with human women and generating a race of giants differs from the more subtle and brief approach found in the Bible. In the book of Genesis, the mention of the sons of God and the Nephilim is brief and open to interpretation, while the Book of Enoch elaborates on these events in a way that challenged traditional theology. For many theologians, this view amplifies the role of angels and places excessive focus on the sin of the watchers. This unusual approach was seen as a doctrinal risk, contributing to the book's exclusion from the biblical canon. The mystical and detailed descriptions of heaven, stars, and spiritual dimensions also contributed to the Book of Enoch being considered strange to the canon. Its unique cosmology, describing a crystalline heaven and chambers housing natural phenomena, diverged from the traditional biblical view. This alternative vision was interpreted as a reflection of external influences and, for many, suggested a cultural origin distinct from traditional Judaism. The Council of Nicaea, along with other later councils, preferred to include books in the canon that reflected a view more aligned with the monotheistic tradition and the teachings of Moses and the prophets. Enoch's cosmology and innovative ideas were thus excluded from the official Bible. The concept of pseudepigraphy, meaning a text attributed to an important historical figure but written by someone else, also weighed on the decision to exclude the Book of Enoch. At the time the biblical canon was formed, many religious texts were attributed to biblical figures to confer spiritual authority. However, as the Church organized the canon, it prioritized works whose authorship was more clearly defined and verified. The absence of confirmation of Enoch's author and the doubts about its chronology led religious leaders to conclude that the text was not divinely inspired. The suspicion that the book was compiled by anonymous authors inspired by Enoch's teachings reinforced the decision to keep it out of the sacred scriptures. Another relevant factor was the moral and spiritual approach of the Book of Enoch, which to many seemed more focused on mysticism and apocalyptic visions than on practical ethical lessons for daily life. Unlike canonical texts, which typically balance doctrine and morality, the Book of Enoch emphasizes divine judgments and the punishment of the wicked. This emphasis on an apocalyptic and punitive view was deemed unsuitable for the biblical canon, which sought a tone of hope and redemption. Although Enoch brings important spiritual reflections, its intensive focus on final judgment was seen as excessive for the Judeo-Christian tradition, which emphasizes divine mercy. Finally, the decision to exclude the Book of Enoch did not diminish its relevance as a work of historical and spiritual value. To this day, many scholars and believers find in the book a source of inspiration and questioning. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church, for example, preserves the Book of Enoch as part of its scriptures, keeping this tradition alive. For modern readers, Enoch is a window into the beliefs and expectations of ancient peoples, a work that offers alternative views on creation, judgment, and the struggle between good and evil. Though excluded from the official canon, the Book of Enoch continues to inspire and intrigue, remaining a reminder of humanity's spiritual mysteries and complexities.